So, we have been talking about justice for quite some time, and it is important to understand what is justice. So, we haven't yet discussed what justice really is or how justice can be performed in real life. It is not that justice is very difficult or very easy, it's just a matter of perspective. So, how we kind of view justice. So one way, of course, is viewing justice as balance. So it is the balance between different properties in our life. For example, good, bad, and evil. Right? The three gunas, the qualities, sattva, rajas, and tamas. So very fundamentally, if there is a balance between all three gunas, that is all three properties, attributes, then we are happy. Then that is called justice. Same as dharma. So if we are performing our own duties, whichever is um, prescribed by our religions, then we can be sure that we will reap the benefit of that, in the sense that we will commit justice to ourselves and also to others. And this is important because if we think about justice deeply, we will see that the foundation of justice, the very foundation of justice, is love, unconditional love. So if we love someone unconditionally, then we cannot be unjust to that person. Of course, if we love someone with some ulterior benefit, like, okay, I want to get that, right? I mean, I want to get something, then of course it is a question of how much I can love that person. And of course, I cannot love that person without, like, with complete justice. So it is important to realize that when we are talking about justice, it is a matter of deep thinking. So we have to go very deep within ourselves, within our own nature, to observe justice. Justice is not simply a matter of experience, it is also a matter of observation. Because if we do not observe justice happening in front of us, then we have no idea what it means, right? I mean, only reason we think about justice is because usually we see some injustice being committed to ourselves, and that's when we start talking about justice. Now, the other side is also true. If we always saw injustice, you know, and if it were only injustice that we are seeing, then we would never talk about justice, because then we would have no idea of justice. So it's really like a boundary between justice and injustice. So on one side we have the principle, which is justice, or which is called justice. On the other side we have injustice, which is lack of justice. You can think of it as broadly similar, not exactly the same, but broadly similar to the concepts of heaven and hell. So good people, the saints, the angels, they are in heaven. They go to heaven. Bad people, ugly people, bad people go to, usually they have to repeat their work and they have to come back. According to Hindu philosophy, they have to come back and serve in the world again and again and again until they become good people. And finally, there are ugly people who will come back but in an inferior form. So that is the hell. That is, they will go to hell and they will suffer for some time, and then they will be given another chance to either be bad or good. So it is always going on, that process of happening, that justice is always happening. We may not be able to see it, we may not be able to perceive it, but it's always happening. So, one fundamental component of justice is interaction. So, I am talking to you, right? I mean, you can feel like, okay, this person is talking to me. If there were no communication between two people, then the question of justice would never arise. Right? I mean, if there were nobody to talk to or nobody to interact with, to communicate with, then this whole justice problem would be moot, because at that time we wouldn't have anything as a baseline, so to speak, with which to compare our behavior. Hence, we cannot talk about justice or balance or even religion, dharma, spirituality. We cannot talk about that. But the moment there are two people, not even people, let alone animals, for example, animal ethics or birds, right, fish, all these insects. So the moment there are two conscious beings, even anything as simple as food, like you're eating food, so you and the food, and immediately the question of justice arises. Why? Because your behavior with respect to that object, the particular food, the particular person, the animal, the bird, all that, and that behavior is basically justice. So the foundation of justice comes from that behavior. If we do not have a very good foundation in justice, then we are liable to commit injustice, right? So it's important to understand like why we need religions. So religions are basically the foundational moral books or codes, the moral equations that govern our behaviors in the world. And when we are in the world, if we want to really be happy and satisfied and successful, then we have to keep in mind that most of that, if not all, depends on not our hard work, not how hard we are working, but on our behavior. So our behavior, that is our satisfaction, the inner contentment, the inner happiness, it brings about a sort of light, a sort of wonder, joy, right? Immense joy and immense sorrow as well, that brings out, and that makes us happy. Not just ourselves, but also others. So everyone becomes happy when we are happy. Now, usually what happens is when we do something and we feel that that action gives us happiness. Like we go somewhere, to Florida, for example, or to Caribbean, or to a particular tropical country, and on an ocean beach, right? I mean, sea beach, and we feel, oh wow, this is amazing, and that's true. That is amazing. So that is very true. I mean, it's amazing. I am so happy. However, what if it was the other way around? You were happy already, and that is why things looked amazing, which made you even more happy, right? So what if it were the other way around? Like you started feeling happy because you were going to Caribbean, then you went to Caribbean, you felt the nice warm weather, the breeze, the coconut trees, the palm trees, all that. So you felt that the ocean air was amazing. It was absolutely wonderful. Now, who was first? Was your happiness first, or was your going there first? It's very difficult to say. So, at least we can say that going there is one part of it. So, even if you were not there, say for example, I am right now sitting in Ypsilanti, right, and talking about Vedanta. I'm talking about bhakti aspect of Vedanta and justice from the. So I'm not in the Caribbean. I'm not going there right now. I'm not there. But I can feel Caribbean right now, right here. I don't have to go anywhere. Why? Because if I think about God in any way, thinking about God is extremely important because it allows us to connect to the essence of religion, all religions. And that is why, if I think about God right now, right here, sitting here without thinking anything, then automatically my mind will be calm and quiet and peaceful. Automatically I will understand the value of justice. Not only that, I will understand how to commit justice. So I will understand the essence, the foundation of justice. How people commit justice to each other, I will understand that. How people love each other, I will understand that. How people hate each other, even that I will understand. And this is through all these things, right? The love and hate, and like going and coming, and repercussion and re-repercussion and re-re-re-repercussion, and all that, like attraction and repulsion, through all that, like through high and low, through better and worse, our lives are going on. Justice is precisely this movement. So we can think about justice as like a sort of like a change, right? Stochastic process, continuous change. Continuous process is going on and on and on and on and on and on and on. We don't know how when it started, we don't know when it finished. So it's continuously going on. And that process, we don't know when it will end. And this process is basically our justice. When justice is hard or impeded, or when there is a lack of justice, we call it injustice, which means that this movement, this continuous sinusoidal up and down movement, is either too much, like too high and too low, and again too high, again too low, or it is too little, like there is almost like no movement at all. So those are like problems. Those are really like unnatural states of the mind. And in those unnatural states, we actually feel, depressed and cyclical. So we feel cyclical in the unnatural state. So we feel like going back to the same purposeless situation. But that is not true. What is unnatural really is the state of the mind, not the mind itself. So if the mind is in its natural disposition or natural situation, then the unnatural states, even though they arise, they will be short-lived. So even though that cyclic pattern actually arises, it will be very short-lived, like maybe a few minutes or even a few seconds. So those very short-lived cycles, they will arise, but they will not be able to affect justice. Now, what is justice? Again, justice is the continuous exchange between good, bad and ugly. Continuous balancing and rebalancing and rebalancing process. It is continuous, it is going on, there is no end to it, there is no beginning, there is no purpose. So if someone says, what is the purpose? Why God created the world? The best answer would be, God said, I don't care, I want to create the world, that's why I did it. So there is really no purpose. However, God is the purpose. Realization is the purpose. If we say, okay, I do religion, fine. What do? I go to temple or I go to church, I go to mosque, I pray. Very good, very good. Have you seen God? Well, no. Then maybe pray harder. Like the purpose of religion is to see God, and not just seeing God. Smelling God, tasting God, eating God, really having all sorts of wonderful relationships with God, even having sex with God. So all of that, like like the Sri Ramakrishna, or like great Messiah Sri Ramakrishna, he used to say, God is everywhere. God is everywhere. The flow of grace is always going on, always, all the time. We simply have to raise our sails. We simply have to raise our sails and flow in the grace of God, so that when it comes down, we can sit quietly and we can say, oh God, please give us your grace. Please make us blessed. Please make us your companions. And that is why Sri Ramakrishna is so amazing among all messiahs. They are all great messiahs and prophets. But Sri Ramakrishna is one and only, in the sense that it is he alone who mentioned, who clearly proclaimed, Jato mat tato path. That is, so many paths, as many ways. If there are 10,000 paths, 10,000 religions, they are all true. How can this happen? Because all religions ultimately lead to the same goal. Ultimately, it is the same goal. It is the same mental peace, calm, quiet, happiness, all that, knowledge, existence, all that. So all religions, that is their foundational premise. Now here we are talking about especially Vedanta, so which means that we are talking about Hindu religion mostly. But that doesn't mean that Christianity or Islam or Judaism or all any religion, Sikhism, Jainism, Buddhism, they are different. No, they are not. Because ultimately they point to the same aspect. They point to the same reality. It is just that the way we think about it, the way we think about Buddhism or Judaism or Christianity or Islam or Jainism, Sikhism, they are necessarily not exactly the same. Why? Because they have their own history, they have their own way of thinking about the world, and that doesn't make them unjust, that doesn't make them bad, that doesn't make them good. It's just different. But at the same time, yes, different as though they are pointing to the same goal. Their goal is not different. Now, when the goal is not different, we can ask, what is this question of justice? Why do we need to worry about justice? Usually, if you are realized, you don't have to worry about justice. Why? Because justice will happen to you automatically. If it does not happen, you can kind of make it happen. So that is guaranteed. However, if you are not realized, then you have to worry about justice. Why? Because ultimately, what is justice? A feeling of discontent. So many of us actually, if not most of us, actually feels this discontent from time to time. Oh, okay, it was great in the morning, but at daytime I didn't feel good, then at night it was even worse. So then you are like, wait, what? I mean, why did it happen? Right? Because it might not have happened. If it might not have happened at all. Right? So we are talking about justice. So what we are talking about is injustice. So all these problems in the world, they come and they go and they come again and they go again. It is simply a cycle of injustice. What we have to do is we have to see the positive side. We have to say, okay, there is injustice, no doubt. There is, like many people are mistreating, they are not obeying, they are not following whatever we are saying or trying to say. But that doesn't mean they are unjust, but they are fundamentally bad or ugly. No, it simply means they are different. Now, if they are different, so what can we do? We can do two things. One, we can try to make them the same, which will be kind of preposterous. I mean, we always try to do that and we fail. We can try that, like try to make them similar to us, and we try that all the time, and that is how the world works. Now, the problem with that is that many people will not actually obey our instructions. When we say, okay, do things this way or that way, or not this way, not that way, then people may not actually like it. People may not actually think, oh no, I am not feeling inspired by your instructions. So then what to do? We have to actually find justice within our own. That means within our own nature. Now, where is God? God is our own nature. Our own essential nature is God. When we find that, when we find our own true nature, like absolute real nature, we see that I and God are not different, indifferent. I and God are the same. When that happens, again, we don't have to worry about justice, because the whole concept of justice and injustice stops. But before that, when that is not there, we have to think about justice. So how to get justice? So that is where actually Srimad Bhagavad Gita comes into play. And we will get to the Bhagavad Gita. So this is just kind of setting the stage. So the question is, how do I get justice? It is, if I want to have justice, then I have to be just to others. That means not just listening to them. Yes, listening is great. We have to first listen to people. We have to practice the art of listening. But at the same time, we have to listen to their soul, not the mind. If we simply listen to their mind, then it will not be enough. It will not be sufficient. Why? Because their mind is just a covering for the soul, and oftentimes they themselves don't know that. So we really have to listen to their soul and decide accordingly how to commit justice to them. And that is a yogic practice. That is the practice of yoga, the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, and that is important. Why? Because the more we do that yoga, the more our mind will be automatically calm and quiet and just. The more we do that yoga, the more our mind shall be calm and quiet and full of peace and joy and wonderful. And that is what we want. We want yoga. Now, there are, Swami Vivekananda actually mentioned, there are 4 types of yoga. Raja Yoga, or the Patanjali Yoga, the Ashtanga Yoga. Then there is the Karma Yoga, the yoga of action, of work. The Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of bhakti or devotion. And finally, the Jnana Yoga, that is the yoga of knowledge. In all 4 yogas, so first of all, we have to think that we are not actually separating the yogas from one another. They can be together. In fact, they are most of the time together. So, if not all 4, we have 2 or at least 3 together. So we are doing Raja Yoga all the time. When we are breathing, we are actually doing Raja Yoga without knowing. When we are working, we are actually doing Karma Yoga, again without knowing. When we are reading something, when we are trying to acquire knowledge, we are actually doing Jnana Yoga, the yoga of knowledge, wisdom. So without knowing, we are doing all these things, all of these. Now, where is bhakti or devotion? Devotion comes naturally. So at the result, so one is that as the result of all the 3 yogas, the Karma Yoga, the Jnana Yoga, the Raja Yoga, bhakti or devotion comes very naturally. So we don't have to actually fight for it, we don't have to go overboard, we don't have to say, okay, where is bhakti, I am feeling bad. No, bhakti comes very naturally. So devotion, the main aspect of devotion is love. So when we unconditionally love someone, that's when devotion comes. So usually there is the concept of a guru or a teacher who actually gives us the first lesson in terms of bhakti, in terms of real devotion, true devotion, and which is in fact the same as true knowledge as well. So that guru is important. In the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan himself, that is God himself, has assumed the role of the guru. Guru, what does guru mean? Guru means someone or something even that has taken the responsibility of dispelling the darkness of the Shishya's mind. The Shishya, the disciple or the student, is someone who wants to attain Brahma-jnana, who wants to attain to the knowledge of Brahman or the experience of Brahman. And Guru is the one who is kind of like a facilitator. He facilitates dispelling the darkness of the tamisra, of the Shishyas, the disciples' mind. When the mind is cleaned, and it takes time to really clean the mind because it is not easy, because many other things there are in the mind and they have their own sort of prerogatives, they have their own sort of misjudgments. And when all of that gets cleared, then the pure knowledge or pure devotion shines through. Then we can see, for example, that what we saw so far was actually suboptimal. It was not the optimal view of reality. And that is precisely why in the Bhagavad Gita, when God himself has assumed the role of the Guru, he is telling Arjuna, O Arjuna, I am giving you the Divya Chakshu, I am giving you the divine pair of eyes through which you shall be able to see my divine form, my wonderful form that nobody has yet seen with their materialize. You shall be able to see that. Now, again and again he warns Arjuna, actually mostly also in the 18th chapter, that, oh Arjuna, don't speak, don't talk about this, don't talk about this to people, abhyasuyakaha. So don't talk about this to people who envy me, who are jealous of me. So don't talk about this to others. But you, for your own benefit, for your own, so for your own satisfaction, you watch, you see what I am. And then Bhagavan, God Sri Krishna, Lord Sri Krishna showed Arjuna his violent form, his huge form. There is a description in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 11 where Sanjaya, the charioteer of Lion King Dhritarashtra, was explaining, O Rajan, that is, O King, I don't know what I saw. I saw something wonderful, amazing. And what did Sanjaya say? So we have to read a few verses from that chapter to understand what was the situation. So for example, Sanjaya said, Evam uktva tato rajan mahayogeshvaro harihi darshayamasa parthaya paramam rupamaishwaram. That is, Evam uktva, saying so, tato rajan, after that, O King Dhritarashtra, mahayogeshvaro harihi, that is, the King of Kings, the God of Yoga, Mahayogeshvaro Harihi, that is the God of Mahayoga, or the great God of Yoga. Hari is another name for Lord Sri Krishna, and he has many names, like we have the 1008 names of Bhagavan, of God, and we have many names of God. God's names are uncountable, infinite. Darshaya Masa Parthaya, God showed whom? Arjuna. Partha is his another name. What did he show? Paramam Rupam Aishwaram. That is the wonderful, beautiful, there is a wonderful, violent Rupam, the form, the particular shape, the particular form, Aishwaram, godly form. Paramam is the ultimate. There is no higher than that. There is no bigger than that. It's the ultimate. Aneka Vaktra Nayanam, Anekadbhuta Darshanam, Aneka Divya Bharanam, Divya Neko Dyatayudham. So this is Shloka 9 and 10 in chapter 11 of the Bhagavad Gita. Aneka Vaktra Nayanam, that is, there are many faces. There are uncountable, infinite number of faces. Nayanam, there are many eyes, pairs of eyes. Anekad Bhuta Darshanam, that is strange looking, very strange looking, like very weird looking. Aneka Divya Bharanam, there are many godly jewelry, like ornaments. Divya Neko Dyatayudham, that is, there are many kinds of weapons that are not human weapons. These are divine weapons. Divya Neko Dyatayudham, and all the weapons are ready to be fired. Divya Malyam Baradharam, Divya Malya, that is, this is Shloka number 11, chapter 11. Divya Malya is the garland, the divine garland. Malyam Baradharam, Ambara is the dress, so divine dress, divine costume. Divya Gandhanulepanam, that is, Divya Gandha is divine fragrance, smell. Anulepan is the basically ointment. So it's like an ointment for the skin. So it's divine ointment. Sarvashcharyamaya, wonderful, beyond wonder. Sarvashcharyamaya. So it is beyond wonder. Devam Anantam. So it's infinite, no endless. Devam, God. Vishvato Mukham. That is his or her, because there is no gender here, it's infinite, right? So we cannot have gender. Vishvato Mukham. Everywhere there is a face. If you look into the rocks, there is a face. If you look into the trees, there is a face. If you look into the wall, there is a face. Vishvato Mukham. Divi Surya Sahasrasya, and this is important, shloka number 12 of chapter 11. Divi Surya Sahasrasya Bhaved Yugapaduttita Yadi Vah Sadrishi Sa Syad Bhasastasya Mahatmana. That is, if thousand suns, thousand like our sun, the sun in the sky, if thousand suns like that, Bhaved Yugapaduttita, like together, they rose in the sky, Divi. Yadi Bha Sadrishi Sa Syad Bhasastasya Mahatmana. That great being, that great God, Lord, that great God, wonderful God, strange God, had that kind of Sadrishi Bha Sasyad Vasastasya Mahatmana. That is that kind of a glory, effulgence, brilliance, thousand suns, brilliance of thousand suns. Now, if we think about it for a moment, this is shloka number 12, chapter 11. If we think about it for a moment, this is not just wonderful. If it were only wonderful, then there will be no justice. If I am only getting happiness from something or someone and no sadness, then that will not be wonderful. That will be injustice. On the other hand, if I am getting only unhappiness, only sadness from someone, then that is also injustice. So what is justice? Justice is where they are balanced. So I am getting happiness and unhappiness, even sadness. So I am getting good, I am getting bad, and I am getting ugliness also. It's not that I am getting only good or only bad or only ugly. No, that is injustice. So now the point here is Divi Surya Sahasrasya, right? Like thousand suns, the glory of thousand suns. Now this is a strange statement, because what will that look like? If thousand suns together at the same time rose in the sky, then what shall the brilliance be? It will be like almost like an atom bomb, right? Like a nuclear bomb. And that is not a good experience in a certain way. Because we are not, first of all, we are not familiar with that kind of brilliance, and second, we are not ready for that kind of brilliance. So mostly we want mediocre experiences. We don't want very high-flung, extremely spiritual experiences. Why? Because it is difficult for us to process those experiences, to parse those experiences. It's very difficult. So when we talk about justice, we have to understand that only wonderful experience, Divi Surya Sahasrasya, or only poor experience like getting killed in a war, they are just a part of the story, right? So they are only telling us one half of what is going on, or maybe even one third of what is going on. The other half or the other third is actually described right after that in the shloka number, actually it is spread across many different shlokas in chapter 11, but Sanjaya, the wonderful Sanjaya, actually mentioned what was Arjuna's reaction to seeing this huge, violent and wonderful and strange and godly form of, like, the huge form of God. Etat shrutva vachanam keshavasya kritanjalirbepamanaha kiriti namaskritva bhuya evaha krishnam sagadgadam bhita bhitah pranamya. So this is shloka number 35, chapter 11. Etat shrutva, that is when Arjuna was finished conversing with God in that form. Kritanjalirbepamanaha kiriti. Kiriti is another name for Arjuna. Kritanjali, he bowed down, he folded his hands. Namaskritva, bhuya, like again. Evaha, like thus, he uttered, he said something to Krishna. Sagadgadam, that is in a stammering voice, in a stuttering voice. Bhita, he was extremely scared. Now this is the point. He was extremely scared. Now you may ask, why was he scared? Because he was like the biggest, right, the Pandava, like He was a great archer. He was probably the best archer of his time. And he had won, he had fought many battles before. And he would fight many battles after. So why was he so scared of something? Like the thousand suns. And that means that thousand suns is not just, like wonderful, but also very scary. Because we are unfamiliar with the import. We are unfamiliar with what might happen. We are unfamiliar with what is going to happen. There is a story by Isaac Asimov, the great, science fiction personality, the great science fiction writer. He wrote a story called The Nightfall. So in that story, apparently there was a planet, exoplanet, where the inhabitants did not know what was night, what night was. Why? Because I think there were 3 or 4 suns in their sky which continuously kept the planet alive, full of light. So they never knew that there was a nightfall. Now problem came when one day, I shouldn't call it night, one day all 4 suns had simultaneous solar eclipse. That means all 4 suns were fully covered by the shadow of the planet, or maybe some other thing. So when that happened, when the full eclipse happened, the planet people, they were completely unprepared. Why? Because they had never seen darkness. Darkness was unfamiliar to them. And that is why they started dying or something in mass. They started fleeing, trying to flee the planet in mass. And that is why, because there was injustice. They feared, the fear came, right? Why? Because they have never seen it. If they saw it before, like Arjuna actually saw the violent form and the beneficent form at the same, at the same moment, because the thousand suns has kind of both aspects. So it is both beneficent and maleficent, benevolent and malevolent. So we have to think okay, why did that happen? Why did God appear in that violent form, right? Because God himself mentions in shloka number shloka number 32, 33 and 34 of chapter 11. Kalosmi lokakshayakrit prabridho lokan samahartum iha prabritta. Kalosmi, I am time. Lokakshayakrit prabridho. I have enhanced myself, engorged myself, enlarged myself. Lokakshayakrit. Why? Because I want to kill people. I want to decimate people. Literally, I want to decimate the population. Lokan samahartum. To kill people, iha pravritta. I am right now engaged. Why? Because ritepitvam. Now, this is not because, this is what will happen. Ritepitvam. Na bhavishyanti sarve yeva sthitaha pratyanikeshu yodhaha. That is, whoever is on the other side of you, even without you, they shall never survive. They shall not survive. Now, this is important. So, God, who is extremely beneficial, God's benefits have no end, right? Like God is endlessly faithful, endlessly loving, endlessly beneficial. Now that God is talking in a way which makes you think like he is the devil, right? Like he is talking about killing people, bad things. He is talking about like Dronancha, Vishwancha, Yadratancha, Karnam, Tata, Anyanapi, Yodha, Viran, Maya Hatang, Spranjahi, Ma Vyatishta, Ityasva Jetasi Rane Sapatnani. Why is he saying that? So he is basically saying, oh Arjuna, I have killed them off already. I have finished off already. You simply become my, nimitta matra. You simply become my cause, my portal, so to speak. My portal. You become my portal, so to say, and you fight them. You fight them. Why? Why not God Himself? Because God wanted justice again to happen. Because if we read the Mahabharata, which is the background story of Bhagavad Gita, then we'll understand why. So in the Mahabharata, um, so like there are actually four sorts of things that are tried, like four sorts of mechanisms that are tried for conflict resolution: Sama, Dana, Bheda, and Danda. The first Sama, it comes from Hindu laws basically. So the first Sama is basically peace, making peace between the combatant parties, right? If that doesn't work, then we have to go to Dana, that is charity. So we have to give people like what they want to the best of our possibilities, and we have to placate them by gifts, Dana. Even if that doesn't work, say some people say, oh, I don't care about how much charity you give me, I still want to fight you. Then there is a question of Bheda. So in the Bheda, how we resolve conflict is we make two groups basically. So one group is the loyal lawful group. So that is our own group. And then we make an enemy group, like we say like political parties, Republican versus Democrat. Like that's a very bad analogy, but it's similar. Like we make our own and they, we and they. So that is called Bheda. So we make that split between people just for resolving conflicts. And finally comes Danda. So if even that doesn't work, so in the Bheda we say, okay, we'll live here, you guys will live there. So it's a clear separation, like an apartheid, you can say. So that is called Bheda. Now, if Bheda doesn't work, if people say, no, we don't like this, then the final thing really is Danda, that is punishment. So God actually, if you look into the Mahabharata, then God actually tried. It's not that God didn't try. God tried all three mechanisms, Sama, Dana, even Bheda, but none of them worked. None of them worked in the sense that God tried Sama. He himself went as an ambassador to the court, to the palace of Kauravas, and he was treated very badly. He was almost shooed away from the palace, and that was a very big injustice, that Kauravas committed on God himself. And then God tried other things like Dana, for example, or even Bheda, like Dana, like Yudhishthira tried to give Shalya, like kings, and so that Shalya could come over to his side, but that didn't work. Then they tried Bheda, like creating factions among the opposing army. Even that didn't work. So how they tried Bheda is God actually went to our great warrior Karna and said, "Oh Karna, you are not the son of Radha, and you are not a low-born. You are very high-born, and you are actually the son of Kunti. You are the son of Pritha. So you are also Partha, and please join us, the Pandavas, and win the war, and get the kingdom and enjoy the kingdom." But that didn't work. Why? Because Karna said, "No, I don't want your kingdom. I am fighting for a cause. So I won't land into your trap. I won't listen to you." So God had no other choice. When Karna refused, God pretty much had exhausted all the options: Sama, Dana, Bheda. After that, the only viable option, the minimum viable option, that remained was war. And that's why again and again, God is actually mentioning this in the Bhagavad Gita, again and again. Dharmyam Sangramam. That is, of all Sangramam, of all wars, this one, Dharmyam Sangramam, is a just war, because it is for a just cause. Why it is a just cause? Because God himself, like someone who is a Brahmanyani, like who has the knowledge of Brahman, and someone who is avatar, they are an incarnation of God, God himself, tried all other means and none of them worked. They tried Sama, they tried Dana, they tried Veda, none of them worked. Hence, God said, okay, if that does not work, then let us go to war. And then when Arjuna said, oh no, I cannot actually fight this war, it's too bloody, too gory, I cannot fight this. It's too much for me. Then God said, what the heck, what are you talking about? Like, you have to fight this war. Why? Because, and that is another beautiful shloka in the Bhagavad Gita. We will probably get to that, some other time. It is, God said, like, if you don't fight this war, then everyone will blame you, and they will blame you. They will not blame anyone else. Everyone will blame you, and they will blame only you. That it is because of you that we lost the war. That person did not fight. He was a coward, and they will blame you for whole eternity. They will keep blaming you. And then Arjuna said, okay, but how can I tolerate this? Because there is going to be so much bloodshed, so much difficulties, so many people will die, in this war. So many people will be killed, slaughtered, butchered, like without any mercy, mercilessly butchered. How can I tolerate that? And then God, Bhagavan, started talking about the Bhagavad Gita. The Gita that is an anthology of expressions, experiences, advice. So he started saying, like, oh Arjuna, who are you being sorry about? Why are you being sorry? Because the people who you are being sorry about or sorry for, they don't exist. They don't really exist. You see them as your father, your mother, your grandparents, all that. But they don't really exist, let alone your father, mother, nothing exists. And then Arjuna said, how can I see that? Because my mind is very chanchala, my mind is very up and down and going up and going down and all that. How can I get what you are saying, but I am not seeing it. And then God actually, Bhagavan, gives him one advice after another, continuously, until and unless in the 11th chapter that situation comes, where Arjuna actually asks the Lord, oh Lord, please show me your divine form, your divine nature. Why? Because Arjuna so far had got the theory, but now he wants to see in practice. He wants to experience. He wants the full love of God, the full fruit, full benefit of being with God. So far we saw that only a few words about jnana, about karma, about dharma, all that. But after 11th chapter we shall see a marked change has happened, in the sense that Arjuna by then is convinced. Why or how? Because of the experience. Because he has a direct experience of the Lord. And hence 11th chapter is kind of the climax of the Bhagavad Gita, after which there are more and more practical advice. So before 11th chapter it was mostly theoretical, then leading up to the 10th chapter, 9th, 10th and finally 11th, and then going down again 12th chapter and then going to more and more practical advice. So why is the organization like that? Because again, like Arjuna was not in the mood to listen to practical advice in the beginning. So in the beginning he needed a heavy dosage of jnana, of nothing exists, why are you crying, all that. So he needed that in the beginning. But the practical advice, the advice on justice and other things really comes towards the end. So one thing we have to keep in mind, like, why do we need justice? Like, we can simply go about as it is, right? Like, if nobody is hurting us, then we don't really need justice, right? But then Bhagavad Gita says, no, you still need justice. Why? Because number one, to regulate your own behavior, to govern your own behavior. So that is justice number one. Justice number two is that there are actually bad people and ugly people who will actually try to hurt you. So to protect yourself from those people, you need justice. Even if you don't actually, subscribe to, like, practically you don't apply it, you should at least know the theory of justice. Gahana karmano gatihi. That is, we should at least know how to do the work, even if we don't do it like all the time. We have to know how to do it. So it is important that we have a clear idea of what it means to be full of justice to others. So if we say, okay, I think this is good and that's why I did it, that is one form of justice, true, but that is not a very good form, very noble form, because I simply thought something is right and I did it. Doesn't mean that that was actually right. Maybe 10,000 other people will say, oh, that was totally wrong. So one way of thinking about justice is actually thinking about the world population. So say there is a particular bill in the parliament, and 50% approves it, 50% does not. Now, if we give the same bill to the American population, to the population of the country, whichever country you are in, and we give it to the people, and we say, okay, you tell me, how many of you are actually against it, and how many of you support it, right? So, how many are for, how many are against, and we take a poll, and maybe we will see 70% are against it, 30% for it, or the other way around. However, is that justice? Yes and no. That is justice from one angle, yes, because instead of depending on the Senate or on the committee, we took the help of the people. But the problem is, it is inefficient, because every time I have a bill, I have to do that. Same process, over and over and over again. Same process. Every time I have a bill. So I cannot afford that. I cannot afford to do that again and again and again. Hence, what is called a constitution appears. So what is a constitution? A constitution is nothing but a summary of what has been so far. So in a civilized country, there is a constitution. That constitution summarizes the ethos of the public. So, like, even if the public themselves are not present to ratify or to repudiate something, the constitution is there to help us, to help the lawyers, to help the lawmakers, and to help the judiciary. So, what is God's constitution? The religious texts or scriptures. The scriptures are actually the constitutions. In Hinduism, those are the Puranas, the Bhagavad Gita, of course, the Brahma Sutra, although is very dense, and of course the Upanishads. In Christianity, it's the Holy Bible. In Islam, it's the Quran, and then in Judaism, it's the Torah, and so on. In Sikhism, is the Granth Sahib. In Jainism, I don't actually know the text, I'm sorry, but in Buddhism, it's Tripitaka, and then after Tripitaka, there is Dhammapada, and all other, many other texts. So these texts are actually the constitution of human behavior. We can say it's the constitution of moral justice. Why? Because they give us the highest foundation, the noblest, the deepest, the gravest foundation possible for justice. Justice is so important, so inherent in our lives, that without justice, we cannot live even for a second. We have to continuously think about justice. Why? Because only then we can be just to others. How shall we do that? Now here comes the bhakti yoga, the path of devotion. And that is actually 12th chapter in the Bhagavad Gita. Why is bhakti yoga important? Because the bhakti yoga is easier many times, actually, in many ways, than other paths. It's not easier in terms of attainments. We have to still work very hard for attainments. But, of course, the final attainment is the hardest. So we have to work our level best for that. The problem why it's difficult is because, because we don't know what's going to happen. So we don't know. So we work for something like years and years and years, and still it did not work, right? So that can happen in bhakti yoga also. It's not just a prerogative of jnana yoga or karma yoga or Raja Yoga. No. It can also happen in Bhakti Yoga. Like we try like our level best for years and years and years and still it does not happen. Right? So and that is actually important that so then should we stop doing it? No. Absolutely not. Because it might happen in the next second or in the next minute. Next couple of minutes. We don't know. Next couple of minutes it might happen. So, and that is why it's extremely important to keep doing it, no matter which yoga are you trying. Like you might be trying Raja Yoga, then it's absolutely important to keep doing it. Of course, under the guidance of an expert guru, or maybe more than one guru. Like not one guru is often not sufficient, so we need many gurus. But one of them usually comes to be the most prominent one, or the guiding light or guiding angel. Now what happens in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is that God mentions that, okay, so far I have given you a glimpse of my divine form, the divine incarnation, why Bhagavan is divine. I have shown you that. That is the Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga. The Vishwarupa, the world, the full of world, the pervading the universe, the God's wonderful form that pervades the whole universe, in fragrance. That form I have shown you. You have seen that form, you have been wonderful at that. You have been awestruck at that. Now, I am going to tell you how to attain to that. Right? How, because even Devatahas, even like the gods and goddesses, even they cannot see me like that. Then why or how did you see that like that? Because you are a bhakta, you are a devotee. When you are a devotee in the yoga of devotion, we actually see things. We hear, we see, we taste, we touch. So it's like a personal relationship with God. And that is wonderful because it is amazing. Why? Because we are always in contact with God. We are never, even for a moment, we are not separated from God. And that is why it's so wonderful. It's so amazing. It's so beautiful. It's so pernicious at the same time. Why is it pernicious? Because it will ruin you. Ruin you about what? Ruin us about our conceptions. All our previous conceptions, previous assumptions about the world will be lost. In that sense, it's completely and totally pernicious. In that pernicious cycle, what will happen is gradually we will lose our own selves, our own ego. All our ego will be lost. We will forget who we were, we will forget who we are, we will forget where we are. We will forget all of that. We will forget the past, forget the future. The only thing that will remain, that shall remain, is now. That is the only thing that shall remain, now. What is now? It's a big bubble. It's like a huge bubble. The whole universe is only one thing, now, right now. And that shall remain. And that is exactly Bhakti Yoga. The Bhakti Yoga is just one of the yogas, of course. Bhakti Yoga is just one line of yoga that we can think about, that we can meditate on, that we can practice. But there are other yogas like Raja Yoga or Jnana Yoga and or Jnana Yoga and or Karma Yoga. Why is Bhakti Yoga important? Because it is actually, like we have different layers of the body, right? The outermost layer is the physical layer. Then comes the prana, the life forces, the breathing, the blood flow, all that. Then comes the mind, the layer of the mind. Then comes the layer of the memory, and finally comes the layer of the emotions. And beyond that is the Parabrahman, that is God. Now, as you can see from the schematic, like, okay, at the top is the physical layer, then the mind, then the prana, then the mind, then the memories, then the emotions. So we have to penetrate all 5 layers and go to the emotions and penetrate even that. Who can do that? In fact, bhakti is actually powerful enough that it can penetrate even the emotion layer. Other yogas, like Karma Yoga, for example, penetrates only the first layer, which is, or maybe the second, which is the physical layer and the pranic layer. It cannot penetrate the mind easily. For that, we need Jnana Yoga, the yoga of wisdom, the yoga of understanding. That penetrates the mind, yes. But it cannot penetrate easily the emotions. So for emotions, in fact, we can never penetrate emotions completely. It's just we have to play with it. But that is where bhakti yoga is so important. It has tremendous power and tremendous energy, and with that we actually come to justice. How or why? Because ultimately what happens? What happens is that you become bhakti, you become devotion, you become religion, you become God, you become all of that. Hence, you also become justice. You become the embodiment, the fulfillment of justice. There can be no injustice out of you. Whatever you say will be correct, will be right. And that is justice. That is the justice at its finest, at its subtlest, the most blessed form. That is justice. And this justice is full of love as well. It is not that there is no love. Yes, of course, there can be confrontations and conflicts there. But the conflicts, even they have a very different nature. So even if there is a conflict, yes, you shall learn something from it. Even you will like the conflicts in a sense. So even the conflicts will turn out to be full of immortality and nectar. There will be great conflicts. There will be like conflicts like the Dharmyam Samrama. And Dharmyam Samrama was actually a bloody conflict. But initial 10 days, like until Bhishma Pitama was the commander in chief, he never allowed like adharmyam samrama. He never allowed illegitimate war, illegitimate fighting. He never allowed that. So even the Kurukshetra war for first 10 days was actually free from adharma, free from imbalance, free from injustice. But then later on more and more injustice crept in, and God did not do much to stop that because God himself had a particular agenda, so to speak, that is seeing Yudhishthira as the king of Bharatavarsha, seeing Yudhishthira as the king of independent India. So he had an agenda, yes, but that agenda was so great, so noble, that for that, even if he allowed injustice to happen, that was okay. That was okay because the agenda was so full of nobility, so full of divinity, love, so full, so great, that agenda could be tolerated. And that is where the fine distinctions of godly justice and human justice is important. The human justice only sees the here and now, but godly justice, the divine justice, sees everything, the past, present and future. In fact, God himself mentioned this in the Bhagavad Gita when Arjuna asked him, Aparan bhavato janma, param janma vivasvatah, kathametad vijaniyan tvamadu proktavaniti. That is chapter 4, I think shloka 2. So that is actually Jnana Yoga, chapter 4, and shloka 4, chapter 4, shloka 4. Aparam bhavato janma, param janma vivasvatah, kathametad vijanyam tvamadu proktavaniti. That is, your birth was later than the sun. The sun was born before you. Then how shall I know kathametad vijanyam tvamadu proktavaniti, that it is you who had mentioned all this to the sun before that, before even your birth. And then Bhagavan mentioned something wonderful. That is shloka number 5, chapter 4. Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tavacharjuna tanyahan veda sarvani na tvam veta paranta. That is, there have been many words, O Arjuna. Many words. Bahuni me vyatitani. They are all past. In the past, we have had many births. Even you have had many births. Tavacharjuna. Right? Even you, Tavacharjuna, had many births. Tanyaham Veda Sarvani. Now here comes the brilliant point, right? Like here comes the point that God is making. And this is what shows us that He is actually God. Tanyaham Veda Sarvani. I know all of that. Tanyaham Veda Sarvani. But not one Veta Parantapa. You don't know. Why? Because Arjuna is a mere human. He is a human being. He is not God. Not one Veta Parantapa. You don't know what happened. Ajopi sanna vyatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim swamadhisthaya sambhavami atma mayaya. That is, although I am beyond birth, beyond death, ajopi, Sannavayatma, that is, there is no destruction of my soul. My soul is avayatma, that is, there is no humiliation of my soul. Bhutanam Ishwaropi San, that is, I am the God of everything that exists, right? And yet, Prakriting Swamadhisthaya, that is, I control my own nature, right? I control my own nature. That's what God is saying again and again. That is God speaking. Prakritim Swamadhisthaya Sambhavami, I take birth Atma Mayaya, with my own powers. Now that is a wonderful statement, isn't it? That is shloka number 6, chapter 4. Wonderful statement. Why? Because who can say this? Right? Who can say this other than God? And then comes even more. So then comes shloka number 7, chapter 4. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutthanam adharmasya. Whenever there have been injustice, or there shall be injustice, or there is injustice, tadatmanam srijamyam. Immediately I create myself. He didn't even say I take a bath. He says I create myself. Srijamyam. It is wonderful. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge. In every age, that is shloka number 8, chapter 4, every age, every situation, every circumstance, every disposition, dharma samsthapanarthaya, I take birth, sambhavami. Why? Because I want to establish dharma, justice. And that is actually probably the biggest and the most direct expression of justice that God ever uttered in the Bhagavad Gita. Dharma samsthapanarthaya. That is, I take birth from every age, in every age, yuge yuge. Why? Because I want to establish samsthapana. What? Dharma. I want to establish the dharma, I want to establish the justice, and I come. I descend on the earth, that is why. And this is brilliant. This is actually like a master stroke, because it shows on one side that God is aware of the problems that is happening. God is not unaware. God knows what is happening. Diviva chakshuratatam, right? God knows. God is everywhere. God knows what is happening, and yet God takes his or her time. Why? Because abhyutthanam adharmasya. God gives time to adharmis also. Just like God gives time to good people, God also gives time to bad people and ugly people. So that they also have their days, they also have their time, they also have their free will to do what? To change themselves, to correct themselves. But if they fail to do that, if they fail at that, abhyutthanam adharmasya, if there is a preponderance of injustice, then God has no other recourse but to come down on earth in a human form. It's not that God cannot assume the form of animals or other things. In fact, God had assumed the form of animals. But usually in a human form, God comes and God saves all the human beings, or most of the human beings, or most of humanity. God saves. And that goes on for quite a few centuries. That effect of God's coming goes on for quite a few centuries. It's not immediately obvious, like the nuclear war. The nuclear weapon, when it's thrown, it's not immediately obvious, like what happened. What is obvious is that all the communications are cut off. So like people from thousands of miles or hundreds of miles away, they cannot actually talk to anyone in the city using telephone or telegraph or electricity. Nothing works. So using those Gangayam Ghosha, that is circumstantial evidence or circumstantial clues, they understand, something massive must have had happened, right? And that is precisely what God is saying here, that I don't come often, but when I do come, then it's a very difficult thing. It's a very different thing. When all those people, Bepamanaha Kiriti, like everyone just gets a kampa, they get a like a shiver, a chill, down their spine when God descends. And that is the form of justice, the violent form of justice. Like so far, God was loving and kind and everything. He gave you time, He gave you food, He gave you money, He gave you everything. To see what? To see whether you are doing His what. So, God is genderless, so I can say whether you are doing her work. But if you are not doing her work, instead if you are tormenting him or her, then God shall descend one day, and that day shall be your last. And that is wonderful, because if we think deeply, it is often the case that we don't get the fruit of our actions immediately. Right? It has to wait. It has to wait few months, few weeks, few years, even few decades, even sometimes centuries, before the fruit is actually realized. Same with God. Like when God comes, that means that injustice has been going on for several decades, perhaps several centuries. And that is why God had to come down to rid the world of injustice, to purge the world of all the unjust people, of all the bad and ugly forms, of all the badness, ugliness, all that. God had to come down. There was no other way. And that is why again and again, God is saying the same thing. Yada yada hi dharmasya. Whenever there is glani, there is a darkening of justice, darkening of dharma, or dharmic principles. Abhyuthanam adharmasya. Whenever there is a upsurge, there is an upsurge in injustice. Abhyuthanam adharmasya, of injustice. Immediately, tadatmanam srijamya. Immediately I have to create myself. I got to create myself. Why? Because otherwise there will be even more of the injustice. So if God didn't come, or God hadn't come ever, then be sure that the whole world will descend into chaos. It is because God comes again and again and again. That is why we have the messiahs, we have the incarnations, we have the avatars, we have the idols. So now a small plug about idolatry. So what is idolatry? So we think Hindus actually worship idols, but that is actually far from the truth. Everyone worships idols, like American idols, right? Indian idols. We have idols everywhere. So it's not just Hindus. Everyone worships idols. So, like to us, like role models. It's almost like role models. So everyone has a role model. So what are idols? Like the the godly, the spiritual idols. They are actually people who are spiritual role models. So they were actually people like Shiva and Vishnu and Brahma and all these people, like Devis, all the Devis, Saraswati, Lakshmi, Durga, Kali, all the idols. They were actually once upon a time, maybe thousands of years back, were people like us. But over time, what happened is that their personhood got vanished. In the sense that they attained Brahma Jnana, they realized God in their very lives. And hence what happened is that they became gods and goddesses. So there is no harm in worshipping them. Why? Because ultimately we are worshipping God. We are not worshipping the idols, right? I mean, the idols are simply placeholders. So just like like you want to drink milk, right, or honey. You cannot simply drink it from anything. You need a bowl or a vessel on which you pour the milk, you pour the honey, and then you drink it. You cannot drink the milk just like that. And these are just like that. These people, these idols, are just like the bowls or vessels in which you pour the milk, God, and you drink it. And that is called idolatry. That is the worship of idols. There is no injustice in it. There is no. Now, what happens? The problem is sometimes people think, oh, my idol is bigger than your idol. It is better than your idol, quicker than your idol. It is more different. No, that is foolishness. That is absolute foolishness. Because no one's idol is any different, any bigger, any better than anyone else's. Idol is just that, idols. Now, when you actually, Sri Ramakrishna wonderfully, like beautifully, very beautiful, his in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, he mentioned, oh, like little girls, they play with these dolls, small doll, like Barbie dolls. So little girls and little boys also, actually, they play with these dolls. Why? Because they don't have, they often don't have the conception of abstraction, right? They don't abstract, they don't think that, oh, these dolls could actually be people or something like that. So, okay, so they play with dolls, but after some time, when they realize that, it's the actual people after which the dolls have been fashioned, then they don't play the dolls anymore. They actually lock them up in their own attic or in their own closet, and they don't get the dolls anymore. So when they grow up, they understand that the dolls are simply like a replica or image of human beings. They are not actual human beings. So they don't play with the dolls anymore. So once you realize you don't need to play with dolls anymore. You don't need to have any idols anymore. Of course, you have to do the practice. That is another thing. So for practice, sometimes people use idols, but that is very, very like devotional monks or devotional saints or devotional sages. They use a little bit of idols, but idolatry, but that's very, very little. You don't need huge temples or huge offices, huge things. No, those things are only when there is not enough spiritual enlightenment, so to speak. If there is enough spiritual enlightenment, then we don't need any of those things. No, because we have realized our true nature, which is divine. Now, with idolatry, there comes another point, like what is devotion? What is bhakti? And that is a profound question. So, what is devotion? We cannot really say what it is, because there is a saying, again Sri Ramakrishna said this, Bhakti Bhakto Bhagavan, Bhagavat Bhakto Bhagavan. So that is the devotee, God, and Bhagavat, that is the Bhakti Shastra, that is the devotional literature. The devotee, God, and devotional literature, they are really one and the same. In other words, you can say devotion is God. So when we have devotion, in fact, the word religion comes from the root, which means love or connecting, which is actually devotion. This devotion is nothing but God. So when you have real devotion, we also have real knowledge. And at the same time, we also have real work and real Raja Yoga. That is real breathing practice, real pranayama. We have all four at the same time, simply using devotion. So we need nothing more. We continuously do japam or like chanting in the mind, continuously going on and on and on and on and on, and we will understand what justice is, what dharma is, what religion is. We will understand what rules are, what principles are, everything. Why? Because Bhagavan himself, God himself, mentioning in the Bhagavad Gita that if you keep doing this, swalpamapi, even a little bit of this, asya dharmasya trayati mahato bhayat. Even if you do a little bit of this practice, trayati mahato bhayat. Even big fears, like you might have like very big fear, like, oh, I fear cockroaches, right? Some people fear spiders. So I fear all these things, right? So that fear is there. Now when you do this practice, even little bit, that actually gives you a lot of relief. Trayati mahato bhayat. It will relieve you of even biggest of your fears. There will be no fear at all. You will be completely fearless. And fearlessly you will go through the whole universe. And that is the ultimate expression of justice. Like lokan nod vijate. That is, no one is troubling me, no one is scaring me, and I am also not troubling anyone, I am not scaring anyone, I am friend to everyone. That is the best form of justice. That is the best manifestation, because when that happens, we know for sure that something has changed. Because a world that was so unfair to us, so injusticeful, so unjust, so unfair, so truculent, that world suddenly changed. And now everyone is friendly, everyone is peaceful, everyone is amazing. That is wonderful. That is exactly what we want, that is exactly what we need, that is exactly what we will end up having if we follow the dharma, if we follow God's name. If we chant God's name, keep chanting God's name, God's holy name all the time, whatever form, whatever God we like, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, Islam, whatever God we like, keep chanting the name, keep chanting the holy name of God, and then you shall realize one day that you and the God are no different. You and the God are really the same. The two sides of the same coin, same face. There is no difference. All the difference that we see are simply difference in appearance. And just like bubbles in the whole ocean, they will go away. All the differences will vanish, and then finally only one remains. And then even that goes away. Even that goes away. And after that, what happens cannot be described. Cannot be described in human language, because it is beyond human language. So, for now, we have to keep on doing the practice, keep on doing the chanting, keep on doing the sadhana, the worship, continuously. And how shall we do that? So there are many ways. The Raja Yoga actually describes many different ways. So one is the chanting, the japam, which is extremely effective. We continuously do the chanting, like really 24 hours a day, and that controls the mind. The other, of course, is music. The one that I practice usually, I am telling here, is music meditation. So I play the music, the kirtans and the bhajans continuously, 24 hours a day. I try to do that. And when that happens, when the music actually pervades and permeates your whole body, your whole mind, your whole memory, whole emotions, psyche, everything, you will feel that you are in a different realm, you are in a different region, you are in a different region, you are in a different world, that is cosmos. You are in the cosmos, and then not just cosmos, you are in the heaven. That is heaven, because there is no other heaven than the heaven that you create for yourself. That is your heaven, and when that happens, you taste immortality. You literally taste immortality in your tongues. You literally taste, you literally feel the greatness of God. You feel the smell of God, the touch of God, the sound of God, the vision of God. You get all of that. Even the memory, the dreams of God. You start dreaming about God and godly things and godly people, and more the life changes. More and more it changes, even more changes come. And then gradually you see that there is no end to this change. But that does not make us unhappy anymore. We have to continuously dance with the changes. We have to continuously be one with it. We have to continuously love the changes instead of resisting that. And that is justice. Justice is when we are not against anything and nothing is against us. That is the complete expression of justice. When justice happens, everything in the world, there is no qualms anymore, there is no hatred anymore, there is no ill will, ill feeling anymore, there is no debauchery anymore, there is no envy anymore, no sins, only bliss, pure and simple bliss. Only bliss, only joy, only happiness, only our own self. And when that happens, wonderful things start happening. We have to see that that is the position that we want to assume. That is the position in the world, in today's tormented world, in today's unjust world, in today's difficult world. That is the position that we all have to assume. We have to assume the position of God. We have to realize God. And that is the only way we can help others. That is the only way we can be a leader. That is the only way we can really be a follower, a true follower. That is the only way we can be a true listener. That is the only way we can be a true speaker. We have to realize God. And God realization is exceedingly important because it is never unimportant. It was never unimportant, it shall never be unimportant, it is never unimportant. And that is why we need to realize God as soon as possible, as early as possible, as urgently as possible. God realization is the goal of life. Sri Ramakrishna pointed this out again and again. He mentioned God realization is your goal of life, and that is why we are talking about justice. Ultimately, justice, the fullest expression of justice, is only possible when everyone is realized. When everyone is realized, there is no issue about justice. Justice happens automatically. But before that, until and unless everyone is realized, we have to keep talking about justice because it is a wonderful topic. It is a wonderful subject. The Bhagavad Gita deals very specifically in different terms of justice, different types of people, how you deal with that. And even Sri Ramakrishna beautifully, wonderfully mentions like how to deal with different kinds of people and different kinds of tendencies, different kinds of situations. We have to understand Gahana Karmano Gati, right? Like the complex is the way of action, and we have to understand that. Why? Because ultimately we have to dance with the flow of change. Change is constant, it shall change, no, there is no problem with that. But we have to understand that we cannot afford to stem the flow of change, we cannot afford to stop change. Why? Because we have no power to do that. All we can do is dance with it, dance with the change. And change, no problem. There is change, so what? Keep dancing with it. And that is why ultimately we shall realize that we are not different from the change. The change is us and we are the change. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you listening to such a long exposition, and I hope to be able to, in the next session, I hope to be able to discuss more about the Bhakti Yoga and the religion, the Bhakti, the religion of Bhakti, and the religion of love that God expounded, God talked about in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 12 and also thereafter. And also different kinds of people, there are different ways you do justice, different ways you think about justice, and different types of action and different types of duties. There are many different ways to think about it, there are many different ways to expound it. I just do it, in the humblest possible way, the possible way that comes to my mind. Like I have no control on what is happening. If you feel like, you can feel free to subscribe, and feel free to like or dislike, unlike the way you think. And I feel it's wonderful, it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to talk to you guys. It's a wonderful time. We are living in a time where everyone is thinking spiritually, everyone is trying to think, how can we improve our own selves, how can we be connected with God, how can we be connected with reality, and how can we express and expound our innermost nature in the fullest possible extent, in the fullest possible way. How can we do it? How can we love God with all that we have? Thank you very much. Pranams to everyone. I give my pranam to all my teachers, all my gurus, and I have one particular person that I'm not mentioning here, but may God bless all of them, may God bless all of you, may God bless me, and may God's blessings flow in all our lives throughout whatever we have been doing, whatever profession we are in, whatever judgment, wherever we are, whichever situation. May that profession, may that place, may that situation be full of justice, full of judgment, full of love. And that judgment is God's judgment. So we don't have to fear it. It's love. It's just the other side of love. When you love someone, you have to be judgmental to that person. Because you have to completely love that person. You have to feel that, okay, that person is actually worthy of your love. And that is why God is so important. God cannot be, God cannot be left out. God cannot be cast away. We have to realize God in this very life, and that is why I pray to God again and again that He may realize God in this very life, and that let God put me in the state of realization all the time, for time ever to come. Thank you very much. I really appreciate all your presence and support, and I pray to God, may God bless you for time eternal. Thank you.